Hi, and welcome. My name is Rachel Chambers, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Painted Brain. And welcome to our first annual Minority Mental Health Month event, one day at a time.
Quickly onto the Q&As. For any of the attendees watching, feel free to put a Q&A into the little chat box, and I'll be reading them for the next 14 minutes or so. So yeah, to start off, I believe this question is going to be directed towards Nakeya. It says, as a clinician of color, how do you address clients who use racial slurs or discriminatory language in therapy sessions, particularly when that is not their stated purpose for being in services?
So I also am a proponent of boundaries. I think that at the very beginning of sessions that there is a set written agreement that you will not disrespect your therapist and I will not disrespect you. And if it shows up in the session, then I will attempt to allow processing. But I don't believe in suffering as a practitioner. I think that it is already a difficult enough job to show up in the room and be completely present with another person. And when you know and they told you to your face that either Black lives don't matter, I've had that, that they don't want to hear about Black people, I had to have a conversation. You know, this has happened. And I said, you know, do you feel comfortable with being in the session with me? You know, it was a straightforward conversation. Well, I don't know. Do you feel comfortable with me? And I had to say, no, I don't. And I think I maybe should refer you out because you don't get to be in this space with me feeling that way about me. And I don't know. I don't know if other clinicians would be willing to do that, but I do own my own business. There are no rules around what clients I have to have. So that was intentional and purposeful because I created this space for myself to be safe. No one can fire me because I turned away a client. And I think that's also what happens with a lot of providers, that they have no choice in the clients they get. So they have to suffer this abuse. And that's not a good therapeutic fit if that client doesn't respect their therapist. Where's the trust?
Yes, Dr. Ashley, do you have input to say to that?
I love that comment so much, Nakeya. I can't even take it. I think that that's the difference between working in like a community mental health model and working in a private practice model. When you have your own business, you have the capacity to say, no, this is the boundary. I mean, I do think that there is room for curiosity. I'm interested in why you would choose to come see me and then say those kind of comments to me. Like, that's important for me to understand. But you're right. If this is going to be a real relationship and this is going to be some intimacy, there's got to be boundaries. And I think one of the best gifts we can give people is an understanding of how to model boundaries so that they can internalize and use them in their own lives. So I love everything you had to say.
That's good to hear you practicing an element of like your own self-care by setting those boundaries. As for the next question, I do want to direct it at both Doctors Ashley and Lipscomb. It's from one of the anonymous attendees. For the panelists, how do you navigate conversations surrounding racial unrest with people who are not of color? Do you feel the need to educate people who are not of color? Have you guys had that experience before?
Yeah, you know, I think it goes back to, I believe, what Dr. Ashley was saying earlier. It all depends on who the person is. There are some folks where I'm not going to have that conversation with them because it's a lot of emotional labor. And this is where I look to my allies to show up and have that conversation with that person. So it varies depending on who I'm speaking with and also how they are coming to the conversation too. Because sometimes you can have conversations or get into conversations where their intentions are not there. And so you feel like you're having to prove and convince. And again, that's a lot of emotional labor. And so I fall back from those types of interactions and conversations.
Well, and I think that there's a distinction, at least for me anyway, between how I navigate these conversations with random people in my life who may be white versus like my clients, right? So I absolutely do I have a similar stance that Dr. Lipscomb has in terms of choosing and assessing why it's necessary and what my intentions are for intervention. But when it comes to my clients, I absolutely think that those are intimate spaces. And so I have a fair amount of white clients who come in who are terrified to bring it up. They need to talk about what's happening in the world, but they don't know how to talk about it with me. And so often I will just open up with, I will ask people like, how are you navigating? How are you dealing with all of the dual pandemic that's happening in the world? And people are thrilled to talk about it. I haven't had any negativity around it. I've had people afraid and wanting to ask someone of color, but like, is it okay to say this? And am I messing it up? Not because they need me to educate them, but more that interpersonally, they want to be able to connect and engage around this. And I think that I can provide.
Yeah, I've even had people donate their sessions. I'm sure there are Black clients who could utilize my sessions more than me. And I'm like, and these are white persons, and I thought that was interesting, that you want to donate your sessions to other people, to Black people in particular. This is a change.
Yeah, I've never seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that either.
Really? Like 3 of them.
The donating, that would be an interesting conversation for me with my clients about donating time. I think the other thing I was thinking about as Dr. Ashley was talking about, I have to be careful with my clients not to want to take care of me as a Black male provider, because I've had that too. Like, they're wanting to check in with me personally and trying their meaning is good, right? But it switches the tables around where they're trying to check in to me and check in with me and make sure I'm okay. So I had to be careful around that and putting it back onto the services that I'm providing with them.
Well, therapy is a place for self-examination.
Yes.
So when someone says, I just wanted to check in with you, and I wanted to tell you that I went to a protest this week, and I just want you to know that I don't. That's what are we talking about right now? What are we doing? Is this about me? Is this about you? Like, what is your intention?
Do you need my approval?
Right. What are we looking for here? So there's always room to come back to that. And I think that's true for anybody, but in particular, this comes up differently with white clients as it does differently from Black clients.
Thank you. I also wanted to direct my next question at both Drew Love and Theo Henderson. It was more of a comment, but I do actually, sorry, read the wrong thing. My apologies. But this question is from Kevin Gray. How do we normalize accessing mental health services in the Black community? I kind of wanted to get you guys' perspective as people who are not, licensed in any way. Like, what do you think are ways to, sort of advertise, like, hey, this is something that's important to the Black community because it's something that's not often spoken about. What do you think would be like a way to make it seem more accessible to people who might think it isn't?
It's for me. Well, for me personally, I try my best, especially with friends that I know personally that are going through different things. Like, I try to let them know that, yeah, you should go see somebody about it. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people are ashamed, or they feel like, oh, I don't need that, or they feel like it makes them broken if they need to have somebody go see, you know what I'm saying, tell them about their problems or whatnot. But I stress it as much as I possibly can because it's for everybody. Everybody needs somebody to speak to. Nobody can handle all the stresses that happen in a daily lifetime on their own. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too big for people to handle, especially in the current climate and things that are going on and things that we're seeing, and the rise and growth of social media when everything is accessible right in front of your face, and you see all the things that are going on and we're watching the news. Like, everybody needs a little bit of therapy. You know what I mean? So I just try to make sure I tell people personally. And then as far as like people that I don't know and people that just kind of watch my platform, I don't know if it's something that I've spoken about too much on there. Maybe that's something I can't approve on. And something that I can speak a little bit more about and encourage people to do more often. But I think it's all of our responsibility to tell people that we care about that, you know what I mean? There is help and there are resources out there for you to go and access.
And I wanted to add also that I think one of the biggest things that we could do to spread awareness is visual tools and aids. We know through this COVID-19 that we have Netflix and Hulu and YouTube, and our phones are little movies. And I think that as we create more content, like Alan mentioned, as we create more opportunities for people to see us, people who look like us, who are doing these things and they look happy, I love the beach. I love hikes. I love these things. So we need to show Black families Black families doing these things with each other and loving it and feeling happy and reporting the happiness and not just the bad things. Because unfortunately, we've been socialized to like write essays to get into college about how unfortunate we are and how we've gone through. And I've even had friends who be like, I have 2-parent households, I'm never gonna get in. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this language that we're using within our own communities? And we have to ask ourselves that, you know, what language are we using about ourselves within the community, and what can we show different? So I brought up the video in the psychoeducational aid because we're making a documentary about Black mental health. And I think the more you hear Black stories and put that out there, then the more it's not a secret that there are alternatives, that you can breathe, you can do yoga, you can go outside, you cannot go outside, you can meditate, you can use religion, you can use family. There's so many dynamics of what self-care and doing that work is.
Can I pop in and just echo what she's just talking about? I mean, this is really what Painted Brain is about, what peers are about, that, you know, we are examples of people who are in recovery, who have sought and or seeking or currently in mental health treatment. So it totally takes the stereotype that sometimes can be in film, because usually when I started looking at people, you know, if I tried to find films of people living with schizophrenia, you know, it was generally Black men who were just like, it was all over the place. It was totally like off the chart, kind of like over dramatized kind of stuff. And so that's the power of, you know, connecting and seeing the stories, as Nakeya was talking about, seeing the positive expression, even talking to somebody who has a mental health condition. That was exactly how I started this session, right? Talking about B.B. Moore Campbell and the power that that was. You know, she started NAMI Urban LA, which is right there in Inglewood. She started NAMI Urban LA. I became a member of NAMI Urban LA along with my affiliate in Pasadena, which is like nobody looked like me there, right? And then from there, I became the president of NAMI National. Like, get out. Like, when you start to see and be nurtured and loved by our people to move forward with a mental health condition or not, it starts to normalize this as part of our self-care, our health, and seeing the possibilities when we take care of our health in that way. So excuse me for getting all passionate about it, but that's what I do, because it's like the b.l.m.com, I think, you know?
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful panel. That's going to conclude the main portion of it. I want to thank all of our panelists today. You have all given us so much to talk about and so much to discuss. So yeah, round of applause to you guys, you know. And I know we talked about a lot of very important topics, and we couldn't really get super in depth with any of them because then the panel would go on for, you know, 6 or 7 hours. So I really appreciate you guys' time being here. I know some of you have to run. As for the attendees, we will be extending this Q&A session for an additional 10 to 15 minutes to try and cover the rest of your questions. Drew Love, Theo Henderson, and Nakeya Fields will all be able to speak to you guys on that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for participating in this, and have a wonderful rest of your day. For those of you who can't stay for the additional question.
Thank you so much. Be safe, be healthy, be well, everyone.
Thanks so
You
much.
too.
Take care, all.
Thank you.
You
I
guys.
have to lead too.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye, Rachel.
All right, awesome. So yeah, looks like we have a couple more questions in the chat box. So Drew, specifically, this one's for you. How are you using music to support yourself during this time? I'm assuming they meant as like a expression.
For me, it's just music is therapy for me in the first place. That's why, you know what I mean, that's why I do it. That's why I'm blessed enough to, you know, have this as a way of life and a way, you know, a way I make my living. But it's a form of art. That's how I express how I'm feeling, whether it be a relationship or whether it be my life or just all parts of my, that's how I get it out. I jot it down, and fortunately I'm blessed enough to be able to have a voice to put it out and let everybody hear it. But I'm using this time, I put out at least one song during this time that kind of just spoke on these social issues. You know what I mean? And there's an artist named G-Eazy. He's like a rapper, you know, he's a really popular rapper or whatnot. But I did a song with him that's kind of just speaking about, it's called Love Is Gone. And it's just kind of speaking about like you know, what's going on with the racial issues and just injustice and just all types of what's going on. And people received it and people heard it, and it spoke to a lot of people. I had a lot of people hit me back with messages and things like that, telling me that it like opened their eyes to different things that they didn't, because he kind of taps into a lot of the white family. He has a largely white fan base, but also, he's got ethnic fan, but I feel like I got messages from people that kind of opened their eyes in ways that they didn't have before. So I'm using this time to speak on those things, but at the same time, I don't know, just keep everybody present, I guess.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Stephen Brenthal. He's saying, I hope I pronounced that right, but what are we doing to address the structural stoicism that Black people face culturally? How do we let the emotion show? So I'll open that up to maybe Nakeya Fields, Theo Henderson. How do you think we can really tap into Black people being able to, publicly show being emotional? I know there's stereotype angry Black women. There's kind of this overall opinion that Black people as a whole should either tamper down their emotions or only let certain ones show. How do you think we should work on being more expressive as a community?
I think my immediate response to that was interesting because I thought, well, why do we have to be the ones? It's not our battle. The other people who are policing us need to stop policing us and let us be, because we have the natural ability to smile and laugh and be sad and be angry and be silent if we need to. We don't have to go to work and perform for people. They're doing it to us. We don't have to do anything different. We have to practice just being and living our lives and not feeling harassed by other people. And that's the responsibility of the people who are harassing us and not treating us as human, as if our lives don't matter. And so I think that what we have to do is, like I mentioned earlier, we have to demand our due. We have to demand the ability to have emotions. We already are expressing emotions. We do it through art. We do it through rap. We do it through spoken word. We have Deaf Poetry Jam. We have the most amazing people in fashion. Our hip hop, our versus events are us expressing ourselves. There's millions of people in those versus events because we in there in the comments with each other expressing, I love being with you. I enjoy being with you, my people. I enjoy listening to our music. I enjoy looking at our history through hip hop and through R&B and all of our leaders who are coming up and coming together and joining together for free shows for us. That is us showing our emotions. So we have not done anything wrong. We don't have a problem with stoicism. Other people have a problem, not us.
To echo that sentiment, here's this incident that happened where there were two Black men and one day, and there was a male and basically a couple, white couple the other day. This couple was going through a domestic violence situation. The girlfriend was trying to break away from the guy and wanted to be left alone. And of course, on the street, there was a convergence of basically Black and one Chinese man. We came in to intervene from him grabbing on her and stopping. The white guy stated he was there to protect her from all the N-word. Now, I want you to bear in mind that this guy was loud and very expressive, and people were looking out there on their windows and things like that were majority white, and they didn't reach out for aid to help the woman or say anything to the man. The very next day, there were 3 Black men, but 2 Black men were into an argument. They were not violent. They wasn't hitting each other. They wasn't doing anything but raising their voices. And did you know that what the response to just Black anger is exactly what I pointed out. I said, yesterday, here's a woman that was really, was having an open domestic violence situation, and you guys said nothing. But the minute a guy raises his voice in anger at something, you guys feel like it's a community thing and your safety is at issue. This guy, there was no, they were loud and that, yeah. But the guy wasn't grabbing him. The guy didn't punch him. There was no violence in the state of that. So I think one of the things is the understanding of maybe checking their biases is the first thing for understanding about Black emotion. Like in traumatic situations for Black people, it's okay to feel upset about stuff, but we don't have the freedom and safety of it, because what if they had some lunatic, some cop that came out and heard this saying this guys are violent? Or like, for example, in the Unhoused community, there was a Black, in a Black Unhoused community, a white NIMBY, which stands for Not in My Backyard, said that this Black man was walking the streets parading around with a shotgun. So all of the Black Unhoused people were thrown against the wall. 2 were in a cop car just for a fictitious incident. So these issues, like she said, I totally agree. It's like, we're not the problem. We just trying to exist. The problem is we can't exist because of your fantasy that's in your head that we are on the prowl to attack your sensibilities. I think that's the long and short of it, I think.
That's good. Yeah. I wanted to kind of go off that point because there is another question that does relate to it. Kind of in the same vein, it's saying like, how do we start as Black people defining ourselves and not letting, sort of white stereotypes of us define who we are? I'll try and read, I think that's what they meant, but I'll read out the exact thing as well. When do we stop hiding and giving our other races the right to tell us who and what we can be? How do we let white people be curious about us, but not be willing to let them be the teacher?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just open to anybody.
Theo, you want to start or you want me to start?
Well, I could say, like, again, basically, the short of it is that is not our responsibility. But we have a deeper responsibility to ourselves, and that is like we have to give ourselves the permission to be not okay, because that's one of the things that really bugs me. One of the things that I have to tell myself, especially when I face police harassment, and not to be happy and not to always try to de-escalate or to go overboard and trying to de-escalate the situation. If I'm being unjustly stopped, I have the right to be angry. Of course, I'm not saying being violent, but I have the right to, in my emotions, and they're valid. And I should what we say in martial arts, center ourselves, be present in the moment, instead of going off and worried about what the future holds, because they're going to have their problems despite what it is. But for my safety and my own mental health issues, I need to be present in the moment. And that's not just always in violence. When I always say, we always use that, like when we say when we're being attacked, be present in the moment to deflect or whatever. But you can also use to be present in the moment to center yourself and to be able to express yourself in the fashion that is appropriate to the issue. That's all I would say.
And I agree. And I think the only thing I would add is, as a leader in the mental health field here in Los Angeles, and I'm in a lot of community groups on Facebook, there's a group called Clinicians of Color, a Facebook group which has, I think, like 13,000 clinicians across nationwide, and they created together. We all met on some weekends and created a racial listening session. So we created it for clinicians that are white or non-Black to come and listen to Black clinicians talk about the issues that are coming up for our Black clients and that are coming up for us as Black providers. And we ask only for them to listen and then to act as allies and help, not create programs for themselves and capitalize over what's happening, but to create opportunities for us to tell our own stories, because they have access to the funding, they have access to the resources, they have access to things that we just don't have. Even the Black businesses that have been in business forever, we just sometimes don't have what they have. So if they have it and you're listening and you're hearing all this data, there's a lot of data now. Like if you go to Department of Public Health, they have all these trainings, all this stuff out there about how the Black immune system is compromised, the cancer rates, the disparities in the birth rates, the prematurity, the premature death before 1 year, all our babies are dying. And it's like, not just because the mothers are of a low socioeconomic status. I'm talking about like the really educated, rich Black women have higher death rates and all that stuff than the lowest, unhealthiest socioeconomic status white woman. So if people, our allies, know this data, then they have to step forward and make a change and do a difference. Because like I mentioned on the last answer, It's not our responsibility. We are not the ones who are in power here. That's why we cannot be the ones who are racist. We could have our own biases. We could have our own implicit biases and do our own microaggressions and assaults to people because of the erroneous thoughts we have inside, the cognitive distortions, right, that we have. But if you don't get allies to be on board, that's what we're fighting for right now. Our allies are fighting with each other. We're just witnesses. You know, they're like either our allies who are going to be with us and highlight the disparities and the data that is out there, they're going to do something about it and change laws, or they're not. It's just going to keep happening to us. And so what we have to do is we have to be empowered by our allies, and then we have to use those people who are willing to help us to keep doing what we need to do and make the little changes we need to make incrementally until we get justice, maybe one day.
Yeah. So we have to strive for, right?
Right. Oh, well, optimism is key.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe something can happen, will you fight for it?
Good point. Yeah. I would also like to, I think on the last question that we have from Nathaniel Sabio, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think this is directed more specifically towards Nakeya. Currently in a grad program specifically because of the lack of Black mental health professionals in the field that focus on serving underrepresented or underserved communities. So do you have any words of advice for a Black person looking to get into the field?
Yeah, come on, we need you. Come on. You know, I actually, and I'm not trying to self-promote, but I like to praise God and say that blessings come down. But we just moved to a museum in Pasadena, the Southern California Children's Museum. And we're working on some outreach for Black mamas and for families to address how suddenly we're all becoming homeschooling teachers. And I hear all these people on Facebook who have privilege, who can hire tutors and have teachers who will create these little education pods for their families. But what about the low income families who got to work, you know, and do those things, or essential workers? Like, what's going to happen for education for those children? And it's another way that I feel could be segregation. So I think what I'm answering to you is find organizations that are working in the more modality that you want to work in. So if you are interested in art, go find some art therapist and intern, or do some work or volunteer, you know, because people need you. And sometimes you won't get paid $1 million because we don't get paid $1 million. We're here out of passion. I'm here out of passion for everything I do. I don't get paid a lot, but I'm here because I want to do good work in the mental health field. And there's no one else that I know that's a Black leader who is positioned as I've been able to be. So because I've been positioned, I have to take that responsibility. And I think for you as a new provider, you have to position yourself and be smart and strategic in the people you align yourself with. It's really important that you find people that you fit with, because if you don't fit with them, then how are you going to make money with them? And how are you going to grow and make all the change that we need to make, and trust each other? So come on down. Come visit me. hello@therapeuticplayfoundation.org. If I can't help you, I can refer you to a type of therapist that you're interested in meeting.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much again for staying behind to answer these questions. I'd like to give a specific shout out to all of the panelists who participated in the event, anyone else who shared artwork with us. A specific shout out to Brianna Brim, who helped create the artwork for the flyer. Thank you to all the attendees who decided to come. We will also be showing again the artwork right after this. So if you guys want to stick around and see some of the art, I recommend you do so. Once again, we're going to be having events like this, hopefully very soon. We're going to be coming out with more webinars that discuss a myriad of different topics. And once again, to our panelists, thank you guys so much for coming to answer questions, taking out some of your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Yeah, you guys have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good job moderating, Savannah.
Thank you.